example, Netflix, who is a masterful MoFu magician, and this is my Netflix. This is what I see when I go to Netflix, and this is how your website should actually work and your business should work. First of all, there's a login, so it knows who I am when I get there, and it's very smart. So here you can see what it's serving up for me are a bunch of documentaries. I'm a geek. I love PBS. I love documentaries, and what happens with Netflix is fascinating. The first time I go to Netflix, it really has no idea what I'm all about, so it throws a bunch of random stuff in there. The next time I go, I rent a documentary, and it starts serving up documentaries. And then I go and I very specific time. Every time I do something on Netflix, it gets smarter and the recommendations get better. So the more information I give Netflix, the smarter the recommendations, the better the conversion rate. The other thing that's going on is they're looking at me relative to other people who have similar strange viewing habits that I have, and those other people's viewing habits are informing that segmentation. And it's a segment of one, and that's what makes Netflix very, very effective. So instead of my coming and having a very generic experience, I've got a very unique experience just to me, and my conversion rate's really high. And this is what you should be doing in your websites, in your landing pages, in your emails. This is how your business should work, is it should be a segmentation factory. Now, who else is good at this? Well, it turns out all of these companies are world-class inbound marketers. They're great at tofu. They're tofu titans. They all have tens of thousands, if not millions of pages out there. Each page is an opportunity to get found. And they're MoFu magicians. Each of these sites gives each individual user a very unique experience when they visit. So Amazon.com looks at my purchase history, looks at people like me, and gets a very unique experience to me relative to other people. So if you want to be like these guys, you need to be a tofu titan and a MoFu magician. And a lot of people are going to look at this and say, well, Brian, those are big companies. Well, they certainly are. How do they become big companies? Well, they're tofu titans and they're MoFu magicians. They started out this way. This is how they get their core competitive advantage. And you can do it too. It's actually not rocket science. You can be a tofu titan and a MoFu magician. Okay. So I want to just talk a little bit about the people that should be involved with this. So buyers are changing dramatically, and I think marketers, the profile of the modern marketer needs to change. So this is a picture it's a picture actually of the CMO of Coca-Cola, and this is who you don't want to hire in your company to do marketing. He's a renter. He rents space on television ads. He rents space on websites. He rents space in the radio. Don't do it. He's an interrupter. He's a pusher. He's very outbound. This is the old school hire. The new school hire, a lot of people ask me, well, what do I want to hire in marketing? This is sort of the criteria. You want to hire a digital citizen, somebody very familiar with this stuff that grew up with the internet if possible, someone who's highly analytical, looking at all this data and coming up with genius counterintuitive insights. People with reach. So instead of having a big Rolodex, you want people with a large reach online and people who are very comfortable with creating content. So this is what the new marketing profile looks like. Stay away from the old school renters. You want asset creators. And I would empower everyone in your company to create content, get active on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. Let everybody create blog articles and let sort of 1,000 flowers bloom. Don't limit it in marketing. Let it go. It'll work. Great, thanks, Gene. So that was a little bit about marketing. Let's talk about sales. I'm a former sales guy. My first job out of college, I worked for a company called Parametric Technology, PTC, and I was their first inside sales rep, and I sort of grew up through sales. And gosh, sales has changed a lot, and there's a couple of things that are changing. First thing that's changed is, like marketing, humans are fundamentally changing, but it's a little different way that it impacts salespeople today. When I was growing up in sales, 1990 was my first sales job, I had all the power as a sales guy. If a potential customer wanted pricing information, wanted packaging information, wanted to talk to a positive reference, find negative reference information, they had to go through me, and I had all the leverage, and I'd spoon feed it out, and it'd take a pound of flesh every time I did it. And if I think about today, gosh, has that changed. The sales rep has much less leverage in the relationship today than they used to have, because the potential customer can find our pricing, packaging, references, find your boss, all of that online in the most efficient way. And so instead of the sales rep controlling the information from the top of the funnel all the way to the bottom of the funnel, the sales rep really today is relegated down to the bottom of the funnel, and the role has changed a lot, and we're going to drill into that a little bit. Let's just talk a little bit about the playbook I used when I was growing up in sales. So when I was growing up, I cold called. I remember at PTC, we had 1,000 sales reps at one point, and every Tuesday was cold call day. So every sales rep spent the whole day with the yellow pages cold calling all day. It was brutal. We assaulted the universe with cold calls. We had Rolodexes from our industry. I was a new kid out of school, so I didn't have a Rolodex, but the senior guys had serious Rolodexes. When email came out, we started doing emailing, and there was just a lot of glad handing on the golf course and stuff like that. This wasn't a strength of mine because I stunk at golf, but some of the guys were good at it. And just like marketing, I think the sales playbook is just busted. No one answers the phone anymore. I used to go the whole day. I'd make 100 cold calls, and 30 people would pick up the phone. No one had caller ID back then. Everyone's got caller ID now, and no one answers the phone. I never answer my phone unless it's one of my investors or my mother or George Hu calling. I just never, ever answer my phone. The Rolodex, I just don't think it works because the average tenure for somebody inside a company these days is 2 years. So the Rolodex doesn't work. Emails doesn't work. People are spam just doesn't work. And folks don't want to go out and play golf anymore. They want to go home and spend time with their families. So the playbook I sort of grew up with is just plain old busted for salespeople as well. So it's sliding sand under our feet. And here's how I think about it. So I went to business school, and in business school I remember one of my early classes, an economic class, talked about information. And when there was asymmetric information, it meant one person knew more than another person. And that's how I grew up in sales. The sales guy had more information than potential customer. And so that's the left. That's the old school, where a sales rep did lead generation and cold calling and email blasts and had a Rolodex and was outside and blah, blah, blah. The one on the right is more the reality today, where there's symmetric information, where the potential customer or the customer knows as much, if not more, than the sales guy does today. And so I think the role changes a lot. So instead of lead generation, a sales rep really is responsible for lead qualification, and the marketing department's in charge of lead generation. Instead of doing cold calling, they should be using LinkedIn. Instead of doing these email blasts, they should be doing highly segmented emails, just like we talked about before. They should be using Twitter. They should be inside. So the sales world has changed a lot. And I think it's absolutely fascinating how it's changed. So I'm not a sales guy anymore, but if I were in sales, here's my playbook. Playbook number one is I would expand my reach. Most salespeople today have a couple of hundred LinkedIn connections, have 10 Twitter connections, have some friends on Facebook, haven't started on Google+, et cetera, et cetera. Your leverage as a salesperson, your new Rolodex, is your reach. And your reach is you want a couple thousand connections on LinkedIn. You want tens of thousands of connections on Twitter. You want to be early on Google+, be all over Google+, because Google+ has a pretty good chance of unseating Facebook, and people early to the game tend to win. So expand your reach as a sales rep. Then once you've got a prospect from marketing, leverage your connection. So you get a prospect, Joe Smith from Nissan came in, and he's the CIO of Nissan. Maybe you're not connected to him on any of these networks, but because you're well connected on LinkedIn, you're connected to your cousin Vinny, and your cousin Vinny happens to play golf with that guy from Nissan, and it's very easy to connect with him. Or perhaps you're using Chatter inside your company, and somebody inside your company knows this guy. So leverage those connections. When the leads come in, you want to leverage your network to get to people who know him as quickly as possible. And then use social intelligence. So when those leads come in, before you call them, you want to look them up on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Google+. Like HubSpot does it, we'll automatically look some of that stuff up for you. And it's really cool. So when you get the lead, you can see all that interesting information, and then you can follow them. And when you're following them, you can see what they're thinking about. You can see if they're commenting on anything interesting about your industry or your competitors, and really get engaged with them. The last piece there on the bottom, sorry, you can go back, is I think the sales rep's role is really to qualify. What should happen today in sales is your marketing department should be handing you leads. So, for example, here at HubSpot, our sales reps get about 150 leads a month from marketing, and their job really is to qualify those leads. If you're a tofu titan and a mofu magician, you got more leads than you know what to do with. So what your sales rep's job to do is qualify hard, make sure they get money, and make sure they're a good fit, and then add value. So you don't want to be inserting yourself in there and twisting their arm. You want to be adding value. You want to be very solution-oriented. Next slide. So just like on the marketing side, I want to talk a little bit about what does that modern hire look like. And this is who you don't want to hire. And this is actually quite a famous guy. His name's Ray Lane, and he was the head of sales at Oracle, and eventually I think he was the president of Oracle. And actually he's quite sharp. But he's sort of the old school, I'm thinking about the head of sales, VP of sales, cold caller, great Rolodex, outside sales model, 42 long suit. That's what the traditional chief revenue officer looks like. I think the new, if you're sort of in sales, the new sales model, you want to be a social citizen. You really want to have a massive following in the social media sphere. That's your new reach. That's your new Rolodex. I think you're inside, not outside. I don't think CIOs and VPs in companies who you're selling to really want a glad hand. They don't want you in their office. They don't want to play golf. They don't want to have dinner with you. They want to be with their families today. I think times have changed. And the economics of an inside sales model where you can use WebEx, you can use GoToMeeting, you can use webinars, you can use the telephone. All of this internet technology has made it much more efficient to do it inside. You want a massive reach, so you want reach out there, lots and lots of connections, and you want to be very solution-oriented. You don't want to be a cold caller. You don't want to be kind of order taker. You want to be solving problems and solution-oriented, because your potential customer, your customer, is so smart these days, you need to really rethink that stuff. So that's how I kind of think about the modern marketing approach and the modern sales approach based on the massive changes that are happening in society today and the massive changes in the way people kind of shop and learn and live.